My last name, or my surname, is Torrente. Now, this comes from Italy and it means rushing water. I've been very proud of this name my whole life. Got it from my dad, he got it from his dad, who got it from his father. And so it's been all these years of being a Torrente. I started thinking about my mom. My parents just had their anniversary last week, and I started thinking about my mom and her maiden name that she grew up with, which is Fahey. Now, this is Irish, and it means foundation or a base. Now, the interesting thing here is when a woman gets married, her maiden name just goes away forever on everything. I asked my mom if she had anything in this house that had her last name, her maiden name on it. And she showed me her birth certificate. And the second thing she had, and the only other thing she had, was the certificate to register for marriage with my father. Now, I want you to look at this registration certificate and how interesting it is. This is to certify that my dad, John J. Torrente, and then his name and address and stuff. But if you notice, it's got my dad up top there, and then his information, and then on the second, third line, there's my mom, Winifred Agnes Fahey. So from the very beginning, the man is on top, the woman's 3 lines down, and for the rest of their lives, the women's lives, they no longer have their maiden name. There is not one thing in my mother's life today that has her maiden name. Bank accounts, passport, driver's license, credit cards, everything and anything has my father's last name. In fact, when I just asked my mom if she had anything with her name on it, she said, "Oh, here when we get married, they just forget about you." She was so nonchalant about it, and I said, "Wow, what a weird thing to just kind of give it up and then just assume another identity almost." So why do we do this? Well, historically, of course, here it's a patriarchal society, so the man's in charge. And the idea was that when you get married, the woman, moves into the identity and becomes one with the man. It's not that they become one together, it's that she goes into the man's world and she becomes one with the man. So this sense of patriarchy and kind of this togetherness is so strong that it continues to this day. Now, if we think about the current day, the modern day, the more, equal rights and equal voices and people kind of fighting for equality, you wonder, why do we continue with this tradition? Well, a lot of people say that it shows a commitment to one another. And it's good for the children that there's just one name so that they're not confused with 2 different names. People think it shows a sense of togetherness and one unit, a team, the family as a team. That sounds good, but who do you think made up that idea or those rules? Certainly not women. At this point in time in the United States, there are about 20% of the women who maintain their own maiden name even after they get married. There's another 10% of women who choose to hyphenate the name so that they're 2, so it's like an equal distribution of both names. Now, I spoke to a few women who decided to keep their maiden name and asked them why they did it. The first one said, "I'm a doctor, not him. I went to medical school, I did all the work, I did all the studying, I'm keeping my name." The second woman I spoke to said that there was no one else to carry on her family name, and so she did it out of respect for her father. And the third woman I spoke to said, "I already have a last name. I don't need his." So there are definitely people out there who have this feeling of, their own identity, and they don't want to dissolve themselves into the man. But as you can see, the overwhelming majority continue with the tradition. So let's talk about titles. Everybody knows Mr. A Mr. is a guy. Young, old, it doesn't matter. If you say Mr., you're talking about a guy. Then we have Mrs. Now, Mrs. signifies a woman who is married. Young or old, if she's married, she's a Mrs. We also have Miss. Miss signifies a woman generally who's younger and is unmarried. We have Sir and Ma'am, which we don't use a lot here in the United States. It's a little formal, probably used more in England. And the one that's the most interesting is Ms. MS. This came about in the 70s during the women's movement when the women said, hey, why do we have to distinguish being married with Mrs. and not being married with Miss? Why do we have to let people know if we're married or not? So they came up with Ms. So Ms. is kind of a little more formal. And I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever said Ms. out loud to somebody. I think it's maybe more on paperwork, maybe more at the workplace, where it really doesn't, does it matter if a woman's married or not married at work? Or anywhere really, but why does it matter? So Ms. is something that is used here for women who don't want to distinguish if they are married or they're not married. And all I can say is, I'm really sorry in many ways that my mother lost her name because she is such a strong woman and such an incredible woman who's done so many things. And I just wonder if she had maintained the identity of Fahey, if she would feel different about herself, like her confidence and her strength today. Just a thought. I'll talk to you soon.